Now when I had a chance to review all those problems that we're having with our NPC looking up and down, I just rewatched the video and I could see what was happening when it wasn't in real time. I had a chance for my brain to work instead of panicking on the fly. So when we're calculating our directional vector, in our moving function, we're turning this look direction, our calculated directional vector fed in, we're turning this into a rotation. Now, we only want to rotate on the y-axis. So when you're rotating on the y, it's the x and z that are being changed. And then, again, if you look at the vector transform forward, if you look at the y on the forward, that is 0. So we can even actually zero this out right here, because that is exactly the same as a forward y. We could confirm this in the scripting reference. Let's just go to vector 3. Okay, see? If we look at the forward of the vector 3, the y is in fact 0. So that's always going to return 0. And that suits us perfectly in our directional vector because we only want a random xz. Okay, so even more fumbling, but on review I could see what was happening finally. So we calculate our random vector 3 on the surface of a sphere, and then we bring our y to 0. So it's only going to be in the round somewhere on the x and the z. Okay, our vector is never going to appear up here or down here. We're just going to set it to 0. Okay, it's not really in relation to us. So me fumbling around with the transform position and the forward, that was only compounding the error. We just set the y to 0. So when we calculate our rotation down here, we're only calculating a rotation of the y, which is on the xz. Now that explanation is probably confused even more, so I'm just going to walk right away from that. Let's do some cleaning up too. We've got all this happening in the update. Now I do want to move this outside, just so it's easier to read. And what are we going to do here now? We're going to make some decisions. So we're going to make some decisions, and those decisions are going to be based on all these calculations here. So let's take them out, pop them into our separate function. And we still want it to happen. We're just tidying things up a bit. So exactly where it was, let's call on that function. Okay, so every update we're going to make some decisions. So we're going to do some calculations, and we're going to decide on a state. Then we're going to fall into our state machine, and depending on our state we're going to fall into a certain case. Okay, let's just even check that to make sure nothing's changed and the behaviour is exactly the same as it should be. As we see, our NPC is only calculating, like I said, see he's rotating, that's his y, see he's only rotating on his y. So when we rotate on the y, we only want a random value in the x and the z, see? So hard coding that to 0 is actually what we want. We don't want any craziness like this. Okay, see, and he settled himself, even when I rotated him, see, he settled himself down quite happily. So that hard-coded value of 0 is exactly what we want there. And even if I try and change him, no, that's not my direction, he says. I said over here. Okay. I'm getting a bit late and silly. All those problems kind of threw me a little bit.